VP. Let's bring back our guest, General Greg Zanetti. He's a Republican candidate for governor. Why? I don't know.
I was listening to your bumper music, white and nerdy.
Yes.
And I thought, well, it kind of sounds like me in high school, so your guy must know something about me.
Well, there's some of us out there, we're still around, Hopefully they've all forgotten that.
Love that guy.
Oh, he is a fantastic performer and entertainer, and I think he stayed out of the woke culture stuff. I just heard on the town hall news, people in this country are worried about Russian hackers.
Right.
What's your knowledge of Russian hackers, and is this a serious threat, or does this kind of go back to what you mentioned in the last segment where Putin, 15 years ago said, let's decouple ourselves from the United States and become our own world-dominant platform, if you will?
Well, it's a real threat, and, we just launched it against them. We sent cyber attacks like no other against them when they invaded. We took down their central banking. Mm-hmm. We took down their stock exchange. We took down the Kremlin and basically the equivalent of their FBI at the same time. And so to think that they won't attempt to respond, that's not reasonable. So, yeah, if I were governor of this state, it would be all hands on deck. We've got to put up every single defense we can, especially around our permanent funds, around our money. Mm-hmm. Because you've seen what can happen with a tap of a few keystrokes, money just evaporates. So anyway, yeah, it's a real threat.
It is. I used to joke there's some software that I don't think we're running it anymore, but we were running some software that when they needed to do updates, they would get with the software writers who were in the Ukraine, and I said, great. We're running a radio station with stuff that's written by Russian hackers. And now you worry about that kind of stuff. So it's kind of crazy. So what? The other thing that I think is a little disturbing to a lot of us is just how our current administration is looking at the conflict in Ukraine, and they're more worried about the environmental impact of the war and how Putin is raging the battle than they are over the actual victims, people that are displaced, all of the other on-the-ground effects of this. And you see that in New Mexico, too, don't you, General? It just seems like we're more worried about, oh, no, if we do this, it's going to be bad for the environment, than kind of making the environment a part of trying to create a response to what's going on in the world and in Ukraine.
You know what I mean? This is this orthodoxy. It's almost a religion. Where John Kerry is saying things like, well, I hope the war isn't going to detract from our focus on climate change. You just want to go, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
But there is something deeply unbalanced about this group, that they can't see what's going on right in front of them. And you're right, they care. Well, I'm not even sure it's about the environment. I think they care more about their power and control. And when it starts to deflect away from them because of something really serious, they start grasping at straws to get it back. But no, it's pretty messed up when your leadership thinks like this, because the rest of the world sees it. And I don't know, if you're looking around the globe right now, you don't think the Chinese are seeing what's going on in America right now and saying, okay, before we go into Taiwan, we better make sure we do the following, check, so we don't get, the Russia treatment. And I think North Korea, you saw they just tested, yesterday, this huge intercontinental ballistic missile. They're clearly sending a message. Iran is going to be nuclear capable here probably in the next few months. And if you're Israel, you've got to have your head on a swivel right now. Mm-hmm. And the odd one here was India siding with the Russians and saying, hey, look, we'll sign a joint arms and trade pact, and we'll help you bypass the sanctions. And we want to focus on it is the environment. When these world-changing things are happening, it's mind-boggling.
Well, it is. And India was kind of interesting when I saw that, and I'm almost wondering what is Russia's relationship with Pakistan, and does this have more to do with India's issues that they have with Pakistan and they're just looking for somebody that's going to help them out. Because I thought, well, if you listen to Trump, he had a great relationship with the people in India. So what changed there? Did Biden do something in the past, or did Hunter blow some kind of a Burisma deal there? What do you suspect is behind that move?
I think it was Afghanistan. I think that when Afghanistan fell so grotesquely and in such a disgraceful way, where we left all that equipment behind, that at that point the world said America is weak, and it's weak under Biden. And, most nations want to defend themselves. And they said, we can't ally ourselves with the Americans right now. And so I think that at that point, Modi went up and visited with Putin and said, okay, we're covering our bases here. Mm-hmm. And I think they also looked for a counterbalance on China, because they'd been having some issues with border issues with China over the last couple of years. So now, right now, again, the world order is changing. And even if the war ended today, Gene, I'd say this: supply chains will never be the same. The geopolitical alliances won't be the same. Energy flows won't be the same. Food flows won't be the same. Currency systems won't be the same. Banking is changing right before our eyes. And the dollar is going to be hurt in this, because, again, Biden is so short-sighted, he doesn't see what his decisions are doing in the longer term.
No, I think if you look at it through the lens from the environmental filter, absolutely, that's what it is. And we saw this when he goes running to all the other, dictators and and these other countries looking for oil, instead of coming down to Houston or coming to Midland and meeting with folks in our own industry. China's building coal-fired plants.
Right.
Why haven't we negotiated selling them coal? I don't understand why that process hasn't taken place. Now, let me ask you about in New Mexico, and we talked briefly about the natural resources that New Mexico has, but clearly in New Mexico, environmentalists are a part of the fabric of the state. You have other cultural people and issues that may not want to see New Mexico drill and mine in this state. I know you're running for governor. You want to be the governor of New Mexico. As governor, how do you balance those issues? How do you convince people that don't see the economic impact the way that other folks do, don't see the potential from an economic standpoint that New Mexico's energy production could do, that they really are more focused on things like the historic and the cultural and the environmental significance of some of these proposals?
Well, Gene, I just look to your part of the state and what the oil and gas industry has done down there to protect the environment. These old notions that, the industry just doesn't care, they want to pollute the air, they want to pollute the water, none of that's true. I'm not even sure it was true back then. But if you look at the countries in the world that have the worst environmental problems, it's communist countries, socialist countries. The countries that embrace capitalism, free enterprise, we have the cleanest water. We have the cleanest air. And so private enterprise will take care of the environment because it's good business, because you may need this land 10, 20, 40 years from now. And so, again, I think the environmental movement here is mostly about power and control and not about the environment. And so you need a governor with some backbone who's willing to stand up to them and say, no, we're not doing this. And the two aren't necessarily in the conflict the environmentalists want to say. And a lot of what they put out there is just flim-flam anyway, and you know this. Now, we have to use the natural resources that God gave us in a responsible way to help not only our state, but America right now, because America's going to need us.
Right. Well, and I don't know, for example, in the Native American community, I think one of the biggest group of people that were opposed to, say, the Keystone XL pipeline project were some of the Native American tribes there in South Dakota. What about here in New Mexico? Are some of these natural resources on Native American land, and is there any possibility or opportunity there to come to a consensus of how we can work together to not damage or destroy territorial lands, but still be able to get the natural resources that are available on those lands.
Yes. In fact, I'll be up in Shiprock next weekend. I'm their keynote speaker on one of their big parades, actually talking about this, and also their contributions to America militarily. But when they shut down the Keystone Pipeline, 1,600 Native Americans lost their jobs. And they all came back home and said, what are we doing here? Now we had good-paying jobs. We were helping our families, and now Biden did this to us?
Mm-hmm.
So no, the attitude isn't as monolithic as the environmentalists want you to think, that all Native Americans think the same way. No, there are a lot of Native Americans who want to have a better standard of living, and they want to work. Gosh, they're hard workers and they're smart people. So no, but they need to have some backing. And right now we haven't given those people any backing out of Santa Fe, certainly not. That they've drunk the Kool-Aid on all this environmental stuff.
Mm-hmm. Santa Fe has.
Right.
Yeah. It seemed like some of the issues with the redistricting seemed to happen, we were told, because it was trying to accommodate concerns from the Native American community. Is that just what we were told, or is it just a straight power grab?
It was pure political power grab, and then they wrapped it, in their value kind of. No, it was all about, can we get 3 Democrat seats? What can we do to Yvette to get her out, because she's working against us? And by the way, she's very effective, and Yvette's just great.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to keep her. So no, that whole thing was purely a power grab done by Brian Egoff, and they know the numbers, and they knew how to carve it up. They may have pushed it too far, though. We'll see. The tide is turning out there, Gene. I can't tell you how many angry Democrats there are because their businesses have been shut down, because they see the craziness that's just coming out of the left, that men can compete in women's sports, and let's have an open border, but, we're concerned about Ukraine's border. I mean, none of this is making sense to a lot of Democrats. We just have to have a message that says, hey, come over to the Republican side. What have you got to lose? And let's turn this state around.
Well, that's entirely true, but there's some stereotypes of the Republican Party.
Right.
The party of the rich. They don't care about minorities. They don't care about, transgenders and people of color and all this other kind of stuff. How do you cut through that? How do you get the message out that that's not the primary focus of the Republican Party?
Well, you focus on issues that matter to all of us. I mean, that's why you hear me talking about water. I mean, that crosses Republican, Democrat, Independent. It doesn't matter. Water's a big issue in this state. You talk about energy, and the brownouts and blackouts may be coming this summer, Gene. I mean, you've seen what the new Green Deal stuff has done to Texas in the winter. It may do that here in the summer. And when you rally around issues, and you rally around a better life for all of us, and not just focus on division, but what unites us, a lot of this stuff melts away. And so, again, I do believe the Democrats have pushed it too far. That there's just a lot of anger. And so, no, we can win this time. And I think we could actually institute generational change, not just one cycle change. It's things are changing right before our eyes, and it could be very good for New Mexico.
So very interesting. For example, as governor, when you look at the coal plant up in the Farmington area, that power plant that I guess is being phased out. I don't know if it's shut down yet. Do you, as a governor, can you change the course of that process? Is that something that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we should. And you're right. They went from 180 or 150 workers. I think they're down to 14, and now they're saying, well, okay, we'll keep it back up. Just long enough to get us through the election. I know. People are seeing through all this, Gene. Like, what's going on here? We got MLG now basically campaigning as a conservative, and even the Democrats are going, what is going on here? Anyway, everything's political. And all they're thinking about are their own ambitions, their own jobs, their own power. If we put out a message that we don't care about any of that, we care about the people in New Mexico. How are we going to do this to help from the bottom up and not the top down? And it's everything from schools on how you fund those schools. And you know how it goes. The money flows in schools from politicians to bureaucrats to unions. Then the money flows to administrators. Then it goes to teacher, parent, child. You know, when I'm out there saying, let's just flip this over.
Mm-hmm.
Let's fund the students first and get the parents involved on where they spend the money, public school, private school, parochial school, trade school, technical school. I don't care. Let them decide. That resonates. And meanwhile, the Democrats are sticking to this top-down, everybody's going to do what we say. It's not playing anymore. So be hopeful. We've got a good shot to win this time.
Sure. Well, that is fantastic news. I hope you're right. And
me too.
You're in the primary battle now, and then the primaries in June. We'll see how that turns out. Let me ask you one other question, because you mentioned education, and the social studies standards, I think, were released. May or may not have, depending on who you talk to, they may have made some changes or a few changes or not many changes, but it doesn't look good in a lot of people's eyes. What, as governor, would you do about the public education department and specifically this social studies standard that just came out?
I would revoke the social studies standard. I would have it all pulled back immediately, because it is CRT. Even though they say it's not, it is. It's like 123 pages of CRT disguised, under different wording. And that would shrink the public education department. In fact, I'd love to get rid of it. What we should have is local school boards working with local communities, local parents, teachers. It works better. Gene, we didn't used to have a public education department. That was a Bill Richardson invention.
Sure.
And in the last 20 years, public education has just spiraled down. Well, if you had an employee who did a lousy job for 20 years, you'd fire him or her. Well, you can't get rid of the PED without a constitutional amendment. But what we could do, as the governor, you could sure shrink that thing and make it as impotent as it could be, and then again push the power and authority back down to the local level, switch the funding to reverse the pyramid, and you watch what happens here. We could flip education really fast in this state.
Well, that would be good for everybody if we could do that, because we need to have well-educated workforce to work in the jobs that hopefully we're going to be bringing back to New Mexico under somebody else's administration other than what we have now.
Well, and not just the natural resource jobs, but think what we've got here, Gene. We've got just geniuses in micromachinery, nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, quantum computing. All that stuff was born in New Mexico, at New Mexico Tech, at our labs, at New Mexico State. We have these brilliant minds, and they leave because we make it so onerous for them to start a business. I'd love to keep not just the trade jobs, but I'd love to keep the techies as well.
Yeah.
And again, these are changes that can happen when I say we're about to go through a shift. Again, we're seeing the world order changing right now. That could be a real opportunity for New Mexico.
Hey, would we keep the pot? Because the pot in the movies, the Netflix is what's keeping us rolling right now. So as governor, would we keep the movies in the pot?
Oh my gosh! It's funny you say this. What is our economic development plan right now? Let's see: casinos, weed, personal injury attorneys, and lousy movies. How do you build an economy on that? And meanwhile, we vilify the very people who are creating wealth, the southeastern part of the state.
Yeah.
We have everything reversed here. Anyway, I'm anti-MLG. Let's just say that.
I've got a picture here in the studio, and we, Aaron Irving, who does our market updates, and we talk about this frequently, and a couple things that come up from time to time that people I don't know if we're half serious on or not is Brec New Mexico, where the southeast New Mexico breaks away from New Mexico and forms our own state. And then the new repurposing of our building here in Artesia, we're going to call it Propaganda, where we will have talk radio and pot. You'll be able to come into the building here and enjoy, Clay and Buck and Sean Hannity and Mark Levin while you're enjoying your snacks. So it's
You get a blacklight posters going the same.
Yes, yes.
There you go.
Pringles, lots of Pringles. So we're. And I like Pringles, so it's a good deal. General
Please
Greg,
don't leave the state. Let help me get elected. We'll have a much more friendly governor to oil and gas when you elect me. I promise.
There you go. Your website. If people want to read and learn more about you, maybe even throw a few coins your way. How do they find out about you?
It is Zanetti, Zanetti for governor.com, and. They always throw this out. Clearly, we're going to have a contentious primary, but a lot of stuff's going on out there. It's getting serious, Gene.
Yes.
So who do you want running the state, a general or a weatherman? And I'll leave it at that.
No, I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
There you go.
All right. General, thank you so much for your time.
You.
Hope to have you on again here real soon, okay?
All right. Thanks, my friend. God bless you.
Thank you. You too.
Bye now.
Bye.